right. Well, perfect. We are 3 minutes past the hour. I'm sure we'll have a few more folks trickle in today. But I want to thank you all for joining this webinar. This is our monthly trailer talk, and I will be hosting today. So if you haven't seen me before, you haven't met me, my name is Ben. I'm a success manager at Outbuild. We'll do a quick round of intro, so I won't jump ahead here, but super excited to share with you today's topic. We're going to deep dive into how to track and manage delays in Outbuild. So we'll show you the tools that you have available. We'll show you a few different scenarios you can work from, hopefully kind of prompt some conversation. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. And boom.
DJ will cut the music too.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. And so I want to confirm we are able to see the screen share here.
Yep, we got you.
Awesome. And let me get my windows set up here so I can see the chats as they come through and any questions that we might have. Just one more piece here. I apologize. All right. And so let's go ahead and get started here. So this is our this month's trailer talk. Again, we're going to be talking about managing and tracking delays in Outbuild. And let's go ahead and look at our agenda. So we'll go through a quick round of intros here. We've got 4 panelists with us. I'll be hosting today. Then we've got our presentation. Then we'll show you some of the research and development and latest updates that we have. We'll have a few moments for open questions, and then we'll wrap things up and let you enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. And we do have 45 minutes allotted here. So we may go over a little bit if need be, but super excited to have you guys join. And then we have a few tools available to you today during this webinar. As usual, you're going to have the chat, which we've been in previously. You're going to have our Q&A area. So you'll be able to ask questions. Our panelists here will be able to provide insights and answers for you. And then you can raise your hand. And if we see that, I'll be able to call on you. And hopefully, we've had some trouble in the past, but the goal is to unmute you and allow you to be able to ask those questions live. So we ask that anybody who hops into the chats or questions be respectful of each other. We're all here to learn. We're all here to grow, in our professional fields, but also in how we use Outbuild. So super excited to share that with you today. And then, oops, didn't mean to jump ahead there. We got our tools. And then here is our intro of our panelists. I'll go ahead and start with myself, and then we'll move through the others. So if you haven't met me yet, my name's Ben. I am a senior success manager here at Outbuild. I've been with Outbuild for almost 3 months as of next month. And if you recognize this logo, then we know that you've been around for a while. Back when we used to be Pro Planner and then changed our name to Outbuild. So we're super excited to have you here. I truly enjoy being able to help you guys out. I see some familiar names and faces here. So thank you for joining, and super excited to share with you our topic of delays today. And then I'll send it over to Nikki, who's one of our newest members of the CS team.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. I'm Nikki. Like Ben said, I'm the newest here on the team. I'm customer support. So you might have seen me in the chats. I do see some familiar names, so it's nice to kind of see that we're all still engaging. I'm up in San Francisco, and yeah, I've studied construction, been in construction for a couple years, been Outbuild 3 months now. So good to be here.
Thanks,
It's
Nikki.
been a fun 3 months, I'm sure, too, Nikki, right?
Yeah, crazy.
Learning quickly. I'm Mike, head of customer success. I've been here 3 years now. Love these webinars. Kicking off the new year on a good topic here. I'm glad that Ben is leading this one. It's got some really good content, so I'm excited to hear what you all think of it. Thanks for being here this morning.
I'm Will. I've been at Outbuild for about 5 months. I've spent 10 years in the construction industry. I also helped implement Outbuild at my previous company on one of my projects.
Awesome. Thank you guys for introing yourself. And again, as questions come up, use the chat, use that Q&A section, and they will be happy to support you there. And so now let's move into our presentation. And if anybody wants to make fun of me, feel free. I have recently been, let me take a step back. We do have a location to see all of these webinars. So we are recording today. Within about 48 to 72 hours, we'll have this on our website. You can use it as a resource at any time. So just know that you always have access. You also have our learning resources where you can find our knowledge-based training videos, webinar, and our community page, which we'll show at the end of this. And then I am excited to share with you our presentation for today. And feel free to make fun of me. I am a big nerd. I have been rereading Lord of the Rings recently, so I couldn't help but put these images up here. But we're going to open up with what is a construction schedule delay. And we have the famous line from Frodo, who could be maybe our owner, who shows up kind of smug and says, "You're late." And then, of course, Gandalf says, "Nope, a wizard is never late. He arrives precisely when he means to." And so I like to think of Frodo as the owner, but as the contractor, we're Gandalf, and we know exactly what we're doing. And we're going to show you some tools that you can show them to say, hey, you know, I know you think we're late, but here's the story. Here's what actually happened. And so when we think about a construction schedule delay, we can define it as any unexpected change in the original timeline of our contract schedule. So this is after we've been awarded the project, after maybe we've gotten permitting and received that notice to proceed. That's really when we start counting the days when it comes to our contract schedule. And we have all different types of causes and factors for our delays. We've got weather, material, labor, permits, inspections, and many, many more, and even all of the above on our projects. And so after that, we kind of can break this down into different types of delays. And so we've got three main categories or three main types here. And that's going to be critical versus non-critical. So a critical delay is a delay that impacts your overall completion date. So it falls within your critical path on your schedule. And then a non-critical delay simply does not. It might delay a certain area of your project, but it does not delay that overall end date. Then we have excusable versus non-excusable. So an excusable delay is something that is outside of the contractor's control. So that can be anything from an owner change, a design issue, a specification issue, weather. And then non-excusable are more likely in the contractor's control. So didn't order material on time, didn't get an agreement with the subcontractor in time, quality control issues, defects, and poor coordination with trades. And then we have compensable versus non-compensable. And so a compensable delay is an area where a contractor is entitled to additional time and or money. And so in general, all excusable delays are compensable. And then we have non-compensable delays. And that is when a contractor is not entitled to additional time and or compensation. And more often than not, in this case, it is solely in the contractor's responsibility or their fault. And so, you know, we obviously want to avoid those. They do occur. And we'll kind of work through a few scenarios there. Next, I want to show you the different tools you have available to you to show different types of delays in Outbuild. And so some of these tools are familiar from other systems. Some of these other tools will be specific to Outbuild and how we go about our processes. And so the first one that we always want to see on every single schedule is a baseline. And so that is a feature within Outbuild that is simply when we take a snapshot of the current dates of our contract schedule. And then as those items change, then it's going to allow us to see very quickly and very easily when we are pushing days or pulling back. And so that's what we're seeing here. If we see this +3 days, that is showing me where I'm adding additional time, whether it's a duration or a change in my start date. So keep that in mind when we think of baselines. Next, we have our critical path. And so on the technical end of things, that is simply any activity that has 0 float in our schedule. And what that means, that 0 float simply means that if my footings pushes by 3 days, then it impacts the overall end date of my schedule. That's, in simple terms, that's truly all that means. And you can even go a step further, and within your bar colors in Outbuild, you can highlight your critical path. And so we're seeing these red items here because they are on our critical path. Another tool that we have, and this is specific to Outbuild, is a roadblock. And so a roadblock is an item that is going to, cause a delay or an issue in our schedule. And it's something we have some control over. And so kind of the two main pieces of that is that it is something we have control over and something that is occurring in the future. So think of it as a potential delay, not an actual delay, at least not yet. And so that's what we're seeing here. These are items from our look ahead. You can see that little caution cone next to them. That simply means that we have a roadblock assigned to that. The next step beyond that in our look ahead is our modification requests. And so that's when push comes to shove, something changes in the field. It is going to impact our contract schedule. And now we're requesting that additional time from the field. So that can be any scenario. It can be derived from a roadblock or not, something we expect or something we don't, but it is when our field plan starts to diverge from our contract schedule. And then we have our tags, descriptions, and the utilization of our integrations in Outbuild. And so a tag is simply a customized way to organize your schedule. You can create tags with any name, with any color, and it allows you to denote when items are occurring in your schedule. So for footings, I've got a contract delay. For foundations, I might have a safety issue. And then I've got my description column, and that's going to let me go as far as to even hyperlink a URL from Procore or Google Doc or a SharePoint to provide some documentation for that activity. Or you can simply put a description, which we'll see in our example later. And then last but not least is our integrations. It's our integrations will highlight to you when you have an impact, maybe from a submittal in Procore, along with RFIs and some future integrations that we plan to release this year. And so those are our main tools here. We have our baseline, which is a snapshot of our dates, critical path, which is going to show items that impact our end date, roadblocks, which are potential delays, modification requests, which are actual delays, and then areas where we can view this information through tags, descriptions, and our integrations. And then from there, we're going to work through 3 different types of scenarios. And so scenario 1 is going to be a non-critical, excusable, and compensable delay. And so we can, with this quick little snapshot, we can see that automatically. This is not on my critical path. I've got my critical path column on. It says no. So it's non-critical, very easy to do that. It is excusable. And so it's excusable because it was a submittal issue that was returned late from our owner. And then it's compensable because, again, it was caused by our owner and it is excusable. And so we'll dive into the tools we use there a little bit more. Scenario 2 is going to be critical. it's going to be non-excusable, and it is going to be non-compensable. And so again, that critical question is pretty easy. It's highlighted in red on our critical path. And if we turn on that column, we can see that as well. And then what makes this particular scenario non-excusable and non-compensable is it was a material data submittal and it was submitted late. So that is on the contractor's end in this scenario. It may have been caused by a vendor. There's all kinds of different variables we have there. But for today, we're going to say that simply the contractor did not submit that submittal on time. So that's what makes it non-excusable as well as non-compensable. And then we've got scenario 3, which is going to be critical, excusable, and compensable. And so critical, simply again, yes or no question, is it on our critical path? We can turn on that column. We can highlight it in our schedule or in our Gantt. Excusable, because it was something out of our control. It was a rain delay while we were working on our footings. And then it's compensable because weather is included in our contract. And so it allows us to, get that additional time and maybe those additional funds for that delay. And so now we're going to dig in a little bit deeper into each of these scenarios. And so scenario 1 is going to use the least amount of tools in Outbuild. And there's a reason why I put this picture of Gandalf here. And he says, I have no memory of this place. And the reason why I use that here is because in this example, we're using baseline, we're using our critical path, our tags, and our description. We maybe have enough information here to tell a story and to really prove that this is excusable, prove that it's compensable to an owner. But we don't have, a roadblock shown. We don't have something, any documentation here. So a year from now, as we're maybe trying to get compensated for this 10-day late decision on a lighting submittal, if we don't have any documentation listed here, it's going to be much harder to prove. It was non-critical, so not a huge deal, but it was excusable and we should be getting paid for it because we're stating that it's an owner issue. It's because they didn't get us, a decision back on that. So we want to try to provide as much documentation there. So might have been a better use case to have a daily log or something hosted on a Google Drive or a SharePoint that we can hyperlink some documentation. Maybe some meeting minutes would be more valuable there. Then in our second scenario, we're showing a few more tools here and how we can tell that story as to why we had a delay. And so this one is critical. It is non-excusable and non-compensable. And so the tools that we're using here is our baseline tool. So I can see that we are adding 10 days from our contract schedule. We're showing that it's on the critical path. It's very easy, yes or no question. We can see it right here. We can see it in our Gantt. In this example, we are utilizing our integration. And so this is our submittal integration with Procore. Once this has been connected, you can open up your activity card for steel structure, and I can see all of my open submittals. And based off my schedule and based off the actions I took in Procore, I can see that my planned submittal date was February 13th, and my actual was February 24th. And so again, there might be a little bit more of a story there. There might have been a delay from our vendor providing us with that data sheet. But we're going to say in this scenario that we had the information, we maybe got distracted, put out some other fires on another project. And now, unfortunately, we've proven to ourselves that this is our own fault. And we can tell that story here by using these tools. And if we flip that on its head, we could possibly see just the opposite, that maybe our actual submittal date was earlier and then our approval date came late. And so that, pushes it back on, well, that was an issue with our specs. That was an owner decision. That was our design team not getting back within that allotted 5 or 10 days. And then the third and final scenario that we have is going to tell a broader story and provide a lot of backup that we can use when it comes to showing a delay. And so this example is going to be critical, it's excusable, and it's compensable. And so the reason for that is not only is it just because it's a weather delay, but it's because we provided a lot of information as that potential delay approached, what we did to prepare, and then how we documented it. And so this is really kind of going full circle from our contract schedule to our field schedule and back up to our contract schedule. And so again, easy question, is it critical? Yes. Is it excusable? Well, it was rain. And is it compensable? And absolutely, because we've provided documentation for it. And so the tools that we've utilized in this example is our baseline, which we're always going to want to see when we're trying to track a delay, our critical path, that yes, no question, roadblocks. So at least for ourselves, we know that we did the best that we could to avoid it. And then modification requests, and then tags and descriptions to help simplify that for us in the schedule. And so I want to start with our roadblock. And so an example I like to give when we're talking about roadblocks and the nature of that object in Outbuild, I like to kind of bring up weather, because a roadblock is a potential delay that we have some control over. And so weather, we have absolutely no control over. But what we do have control over is how we prepare for that weather. And so you can see in this roadblock, I've listed out that we've got weather coming and we need to protect our soil and our rebar before the forecasted weather. So this is me as a superintendent, as somebody in the field, seeing, an issue that's coming that is outside of my control, but limiting how much it impacts me. It might still have a delay, but it's not going to ruin material. It's not going to ruin our soil and create a larger delay. Because then that starts to show, well, is this compensable? Is this non-excusable? So that's why we want to create those roadblocks. And then the second thing that I did here was I continued to show as much information as I could in the look ahead. And I know that it can be very convenient to show weather delays in your master schedule. I still recommend doing that. Feel free to add those additional line items. But what I've done here is within my look ahead, I have shown that rain event. It was a 5-day rain event. It landed here on this Tuesday and extended through that next Monday. Shows when the actual event was happening, shows my roadblock that I used to prepare for it, and then also showed some of the work that I was still able to achieve during that time. It created a delay. It didn't, it did push out some things, but I also showed, hey, we went to other areas and made sure we kept working. And then what that does is as those tasks move out here in our look ahead, that is what prompts our modification request. So we did the best that we could in the field to absorb that weather event, to maybe not create a contractual delay, but ultimately push came to shove. It moved some things around, and now we need those additional days from our schedule. So that's where, we had soil prep and rebar setting was delayed due to rain. We submit that request. That request will appear in our master schedule, allow you to preview it, allow you to accept that change, and ultimately show that impact to your overall schedule. I do want to take a pause here. Are there questions coming up for anybody? And really what I've tried to do here is show a few different types of scenarios highlight some buckets you can put them in, whether it's excusable, compensable, or critical, and then the tools you have available.
I think to kind of add on to what Ben's been saying as well is there's many different ways you can track this information in Outbuild. And we get a lot of questions like, what's the best way to do it? It really depends. There's so many different variables, right? They're all very easy to do during certain stages of how you're planning. So we push you guys to try all of them because there's really not any downside of trying all of them and seeing which one compiles information in the right way, which one tells the story of what's happening on the project, the best way for you and your team and for you to communicate out to all other stakeholders on the project. Different stakeholders want to see it different ways. They want to see it in different places, right? So having this many adaptable ways to track this information is at your benefit. And of course, we're always around to keep guidance, keep you guys understanding which ones make the most sense, what are the final deliverables that you're looking for, and give you some input from there as well. So don't be too discouraged as well. There's a bunch of different ways to do that. It's actually a good thing because no matter where the information can get into your plan or be part of your schedule, it's just good that you're capturing it. However you're capturing it. And you can always put information back in. We can always send modification requests. We can always recapture data for stuff that's happened. It's really difficult to do that if a couple months have gone by or even a couple weeks, because all those things that have happened in those couple weeks make it very hard to remember what has happened accurately and get that captured.
We've got a good question here from Lance Moore. And is there a report function that you can export to send to an owner client? Couple options there. The one that I will highlight first is utilizing your master schedule. So this is an item from my master schedule, and I can filter this down to particular tags. So I could filter by all of my different types of delays or just my weather delays. I could include my description column, my critical path, yes or no, and then my baseline, and help provide a targeted conversation on these are the line items in my schedule that were delayed. Here are the different types of delays we faced. And here's some documentation in that description column. If they want to see more than that, there is a possibility, depending on how you manage your look ahead, that you could export the look ahead to share information there. And then you also can show your roadblocks log, which I do not have a picture of here. But as you input and remove roadblocks, it tracks the days on those. Does that help answer your question, Lance?
The other thing that on top of that too, it's a hotly requested item as well, is a report that takes your modification requests and makes it like an actual change log type of report. And that is scheduled to be released in Q2 of this year. So like coming up pretty soon, because we see a lot of benefit of you're capturing this data, you're capturing the change from a look ahead to a master schedule activity. And you can actually pick a timeline of, from this baseline to today, filter out all those modification requests, and it comes with a report that goes with that printout on the schedule. That's what we're planning on creating. Lots of people have asked for that.
Yeah. Thanks, Lance. Any other questions coming up right now?
Any other requests on, how to see delays? Some of the people that have been using the Outbuild for a bit longer, weather delays are always a big one and things like that. Anything else somebody wants to bring up that we can talk about? I think you covered them all, Ben, I guess.
All right. And as Mike mentioned, we take in this feedback seriously. We already have some planned improvements for some exportables that are going to help you, again, provide documentation, share a story. And so we're excited for those things to come out this year, and we're looking forward to more feedback there. And then the question of clearing roadblocks. And so I don't want to get us too distracted here. I will dive into the weeds too much if I do. But just know that within your look ahead page, up in the top left corner, there is a roadblocks log button. You can click on that and see a list of all of your roadblocks. And then within that status column, you simply update them to removed. And so that will clear the roadblock from your look ahead. Those do not prevent you from doing anything. It is just a documentation piece.
And the main purpose why we built that tool is you can capture stuff that's happening right in front of you, but it's really much more effective if you're using it in a proactive sense. Like you're putting roadblocks on the plans that you have that are multiple weeks from now, because your support team who is helping this plan become reality, the more information they have as early as possible, the better the responses will be, the better the drawings will be, the better the details will be, the better, the faster I can get this submittal done correctly. If we're sending stuff to that support team, those PMs, those owners, reps, those people that are answering these questions for you, we're sending it to them the day before, the day of. It's not, you can't really constrain or blame them for not getting you answers fast enough, because of course, to try to get a hold of an architect or an engineer or get a drawing proof, it most of the time it doesn't happen overnight, right? It takes days, even weeks sometimes. So proactive use of roadblocks, very powerful. If you have a plan in a look ahead planned out, should be littered with all sorts of problems, right? We know there's problems out there. If you have a clear look ahead, we know we're not looking at them correctly, even if they're small. Even the small ones can cause big issues.
Yeah.
We have 2 questions.
Yeah, well, you want to start with?
We got 2 questions coming through. One of them comes from Luis, and the question is, for documentation purposes, is it best to have a highly detailed schedule, master schedule, and then a look ahead that matches it, or to have a more broad schedule and then a highly detailed look ahead? Certainly 2 paths there. The one that is going to work easiest and provide the most opportunity for success is a broadly specified master schedule and a highly detailed look ahead. What that will enable you to do is ensure that you are hitting those milestone dates for framing and drywall or MEP rough-ins or any other work. And then as those daily or weekly hurdles come up, you've empowered your superintendents and your field teams to make adjustments and absorb those little delays in such a way that it does not impact your overall schedule. And then if, of course, it does, you're actively listing roadblocks, you're actively submitting modification requests.
It's a great example. Like Ben and I were building a hospital up here in Northern California, almost 8 years ago now, Ben, isn't that wild? Like 7, 8 years ago. And it was incredible how resourceful the field team was at absorbing changes and readjusting and replanning. If you have a highly detailed master schedule, it makes it much more difficult for them to plan quickly, because you have everything logically tied. It moves everything. It's harder to adjust it to what is creatively being brought up as a plan in the field. You're much better off leveraging that experience in the field, having them drive what you're actually going to be doing. And then if something does pop out the end that you have to capture in the master, you can send that over as a modification request.
Yeah. And then we got another question here from Liz, asking about, can you update the cleared date of a roadblock? And so the question there is, if I have a roadblock that says it was due yesterday, it was removed yesterday, but I actually didn't update it till today, it's going to show that it was 1 day late being removed. We do not have an option to retroactively go and change that number. But I would worry about that a little bit less in that scenario. It may have been updated late. It may or may not have created some sort of delay. But again, those can be absorbed within your look ahead. And then only if that delay is pushing down the line, you submit that modification request, which is this item right here, which then ultimately impacts your contract schedule, which is going to be your kind of source of truth for, gaining those compensable and those excusable dollars or bits of time or delays. Awesome. Thanks, Liz.
Yeah, glad you're asking that question, that you want to keep that data clean too. That means you're thinking about using it the right way and making sure the story's straight.
Yeah. And then Luis has got another great question here. So would you make a roadblock prematurely for anything that has to be submitted or delivered to prepare for any delays? And yeah, absolutely. That is what a roadblock is designed for. allows you to look at your master schedule and say, yep, I can complete this project in that time. You get together and you look ahead and you plan it out in detail and you say, if everything goes to plan, that is how we're going to execute. And then that final piece is your roadblock. That is when you and your team take a step back and say, we've got a good plan, but what could prevent it? How can we protect this plan? And so the goal there would then to be list all of those issues that are still outstanding. It's a tile selection from the owner. It is a submittal approval from a design team. It is an RFI that needs to be answered, items like that. And then another question here is there a way to export the roadblocks log? At this time, it is an Excel sheet. So you can export that Excel sheet. You get a few more columns of information there. You can, if you've got maybe an Excel wizard in your office, they can certainly make that look a little bit prettier for you. But I believe that will also be a future improvement where, again, we'll have those modification requests coming through as a PDF change log. I think we'll also see roadblocks in a similar fashion in the future.
I threw in a little blurb there too, and this is just to kind of reiterate like what's appropriate for making roadblocks. Honestly, anything that can stop your work is appropriate for making a roadblock. But I always like to ask when we're putting things in look aheads and the way that, I used to plan, I was building buildings myself. We would always ask those 5 questions, right? Like, do you have the manpower? Do you have the material? Is it safe to do the work? Do you have the right drawings and details? And more importantly, is it the right time to do the work, right? You're not just trying to produce and make production work happen just because it's available. That's how you get yourself into trouble of, okay, we had somebody drywall a whole corridor, but then we realized there were 4 different pieces of equipment that had to go in. Now we got to rip some of that drywall off. That's the dance that makes Outbuild's adaptability and the fact that you can plan as a group and plan as a whole network more powerful, because those little things that you miss, they're all costs. They're all delays and reworks, go backs, all these things. So you try to avoid those as much as possible so your team can be successful. So just having those printed in your planning room in big font and on 11 by 17 or even bigger on the corner of your room, and you just, okay, we're about to commit to this work. Can we answer all 5 of these questions? If we can't, they need a roadblock 1, and then they need to be moved into the next week because we can't do them this week.
Yeah. And then folks, we've got about 5 more minutes here. So I want to show you a little bonus piece here and then talk about what we've been building at Outbuild. And so let's talk a little bit about reasons for variance. And so this may be something new to everybody here. Don't worry about it. This is something that we want to help you get to. This is a piece of our weekly plan. So if you're in the look ahead and you see that bright green commit button in the top right corner, that is your opportunity to commit a weekly work plan and then measure your teams how they're doing. It is the one opportunity where you say, this is the work we have planned for this week. And then when those 7 days pass, you're able to take a look back and say, how did we do? Did we execute as planned? If we didn't, what are our variances? Why did we not meet those goals? Was it a labor issue, material, weather? And so as you do that, you'll be able to input these here in your look or in your weekly plan. You'll also be able to see it in your analytics page. And so that is just kind of some food for thought there. We'll talk more about that in future webinars, but don't be afraid to hit that commit button and learn how it works. We have training videos and articles in our knowledge base, so be sure to check those out. And then we'll begin wrapping things up, working through what we've developed recently at Outbuild. And so something I'm excited to share with you guys today is your schedule PDF personalization. And what that means is as you're ready to print this out and you get to your page formatting, you can click our personalization tab and decide whether to show or hide an owner logo, the organization logo, or the footer at the bottom of your page. So I know a lot of folks have asked to hide the footer that appears in that printout. And so you'll see here in this PDF, we turn that off and that'll be hidden for you at the bottom. And so again, that's where you're going to see that here. After that, we've also got the ability to show the schedule from your iPad. And the way that that operates is originates from your desktop version of Outbuild. So as you're exporting a PDF of your schedule, you simply select Update iPad version. And now within your iPad, as your teams are working, they can hit these three dots in the top right. They can download that schedule PDF, and it will appear right here for use in the field. We also have the ability to import holidays in your calendars now. So this was a big ask for a long time, is as I'm building a schedule and I'm updating my work calendar, I want to easily be able to put in my holidays. So instead of going through an actual calendar and marking, when is Labor Day next year? When is Labor Day 2027? You can simply hit the three dots on your calendar, select import holidays, your country, and what year, and it imports all of them. And then you simply have the ability to delete the ones you will not be observing on your job site. And then we do have our timeline view. I know we touched on this last week, or last month rather, but in your timeline view on your home page, you simply set it to timeline view. You can filter by a company, and now it will highlight in your Gantt chart when you have that company set to work. So now if you start getting pushback from a subcontractor saying they are overloaded, you can very quickly and easily and confirm or prove that wrong here in your scope of work. And then last but not least, we've got the ability to export your schedule to an XML, both for Primavera P6 and MS Project. So if you have those owner expectations where they need to see it in a certain tool, you can certainly provide that. And then this is just a general overview of the updates we've had so far. So folks, I really appreciate your time today, and we're excited to see you next month at our next webinar. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. You can use our help chat. You can use our knowledge base. My email is ben@outbuild.com. I'm happy to answer any questions on what I discussed today, and very excited to see you guys in the help chats using the product and at our next webinar. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day.